Here we are, back again. We are live for what is the 40th episode of the End Product Podcast. As always, I have my sparring partner, Quinny, in the virtual studio with me this week. How you doing, Quinny?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. How are you? You're on your feet, I see. You're up and well.
Yes, I am, yeah. We were just talking off air about the sort of Sorare meetup that we were invited along to, which was great last weekend. So for anyone listening, Quinny and I got to spend some time in person, hanging out in the real world last weekend. We got to go and watch Tottenham get a great result against City. What did you make of the stadium, the game? Did you have a good day? Good trip?
Oh, I had a great day, mate. I had a great day. We got to the Tottenham, what was it called? The number 8 pub across the road from the stadium. We managed to watch Celtic before we got into the good and the great of the game and everything. But it was great, man. Honestly, it was great. You know, getting to meet yourself again. Monkey, Hoodwink, MDJ, Buzz, Alex. I know I'm forgetting somebody still at this point. Josh, Sam, of course. You know, so a lot of heroes were there, and we got to meet Dan for the first time as well. And Dan gave us some good gossip, didn't he? I don't know if we can share much of it, but
yeah, we were trying to get the alpha out of him all evening, weren't we? Really,
it wasn't really like breaking news or anything. It was just some wee funny stories, you know, about things that went along the way, as it were. You know, so it was great meeting Dan, great hooking up, and we got to see Harry Kane become the top goal scorer ever for Tottenham. You know, that was so definitely a moment. It was a nice goal to see him take in. It was the match wasn't great. What did you make of the match? Wasn't up too much itself, was it?
It was all right. It was like, it was difficult, wasn't it? Because it was a bit scrappy. I think once the sort of initial goal went in, there wasn't a great deal of like goal mouth activity after that, was there? Really, it was one of those games where City just didn't really look like they couldn't break the lines, could they? That's what I made of it. What was your view on it? I think Tottenham were like quite astute defensively, but also I think City were a little bit toothless in attack. I think Mahrez probably had the best chance. He hit the bar, didn't he? Just before half time. And then obviously De Bruyne had a free kick near the end of the game, which would have made things really interesting for the last sort of 5 minutes or so. But overall, I felt like it was a fair result. I think Tottenham did just enough to edge it. Yeah. What was your take on it?
It did feel like Tottenham did really well at kind of isolating City, and you know, like it felt like every time City tried to get on the ball, there was one or two Tottenham players in their face right away, and City never got into that spell of dominating possession, you know, really moving the ball over the pitch and doing all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was a great experience. I can't wait to do it. I've actually put in a request to Sorare to do more stuff like that, and like get some competitions, and we can get some people along to the games with us and do all that kind of stuff. So hopefully there'll be some more Premier League action with the End Product Podcast over the next kind of month or two. Because afterwards, like the game was only like it was like the main event Stish, but afterwards was where the fun happened, when we were all getting into the pubs and all that. And
it was good.
Spurs fans, it was good crack, you know.
The one thing about it was, I think everywhere away from that ground feels like the longest walk ever. Like the train station, it's a solid 30-minute walk to the closest train station from the ground. And when it's cold, that feels like a long time, doesn't it? But there was plenty of places to like dive into on the way back to the station. It was not too difficult to find a pub. Shout out to Dan. He was definitely itching for a cold Guinness, wasn't he? I think we had to spot a few pubs in there, because he was saying, if you listen in Paris, Dan was dissing the situation in terms of Guinness over there. He said you don't really get good Guinness in Paris, so he was desperate to get a decent Guinness. But it was great evening. And
huge shout out to Dan for putting it all together, by the way. Yeah, absolute legend that he is.
Absolutely, and fingers crossed we get the opportunity to do that more often. We have a very special guest lined up who has come in at last minute, and for anyone who's watching the stream, this is going to be quite exciting because we're going to have the big reveal. You can't see him on screen at the moment, but I have got him ready to jump into action. I'm going to transition him into the activities, and he will reveal himself like the wrestler from the Royal Rumble, running down the ring, about to clothesline everyone out. Let's get into it. Here he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Harry Trades. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you, guys. Thank you for allowing me to be a super sub for this episode. Buzzing.
he's coming at last minute. Quinny was sending messages into the group chats literally 20 minutes ago, and here he is, ready
Deadline day
to
signing.
Screamer in.
I literally just walked in I literally just got my haircut, so I didn't even see the message half an hour ago. To be fair, I wasn't purposely avoiding Twitter in any way. I was just literally walking home back to my house. Got my computer ready and saw the Quinny was in need of a super sub. So I thought, you know what, I've got an hour. Well, I've got 2 hours until I film with Sam and Laird. So I was like, you know what, I'm not doing anything. Let's just get cracking.
Nice.
Setup's looking sweet as well, Harry boy. I love what you're done with all the shirts there. Looking slick.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, I came home Tuesday, so I've been home for a day or so now, and I've just tried to I've moved my whole little setup around, to be fair. Brought a few imports with me, which is the Messi jersey that I got
nice. From
staying with one of my friends in America. His old man works in like a sports shop, so they were selling already printed Messi jerseys. So I was like, so he worked there, he got a little discount for us. Brought a few imports back. Brought my Welsh Euro 2016 shirt back with me, which was nice. I haven't seen that for a few years. Just buzzing to sort of get back into the swing of things, to be honest, and just have some familiarity with my setup, you know.
Nice. Love it, man. Looks like Carol Smiley's been in there and done a number on the place.
Carol Smiley, that is a throwback. I bet there's people in the chat really confused now.
I'm really confused. I don't even know the reference.
Oh, really?
Let me search it.
All the Scottish listeners will know exactly what's going on. Carol Smiley, she used to be like the kind of like DIY decorator type person on in the daytime television, sorting your house out. You know, she was the
60-minute makeover.
Yeah, that was it. I was trying to remember the TV shows, but there'll be a few people in the chat that remember. But I think we've definitely alienated about 80% of the audience. People in the chat are saying, is she the old school Dion Dublin? And I'd say, yeah, that's probably a pretty decent.
The old school. I was thinking Dion Dublin. As soon as you said 60-minute makeover, I was thinking
Dion Dublin's been in there. That's better. Football
double D's.
Really. Double D's.
Well, I've really lowered the tone now.
Sorry, lads.
It's all good. So, I mean, I think a good place to start, right, is obviously last weekend was the introduction of all the cap modes and obviously the free-to-play modes, which we can have a little chat about as well. But I think the most pressing bit of information that we can kind of like shoot at is how you guys found cap modes last weekend. Did you have any end product, any luck? And, you know, did it make you think about where you're going to start prioritizing from this week onwards?
Yeah, so I entered a cap 240 rare personally and a cap 220 super rare. So I have a very sort of streamlined gallery, and it doesn't really allow me to have too many goalkeepers access, which is an issue for me right now. So, you know, once all my goalkeepers are playing, the leftovers are going to probably tend to go into these cap modes. I managed to finish 16th in the cap 220 super rare with 4 players. Won a tier 3 super, which ended up selling for like 50 quid. He wasn't up to much, to be fair. Got shafted in the rewards, but I'm not kicking up a fuss. That is not a dig to anyone on Twitter. Because I have made a fuss in like months ago when there was, a legit reason to. But regardless, my players just popped off 289 points. Yari Visharan scored 100, which was just ridiculous for that mode, I think, and that just obviously excelled everyone else. Yorbe Vitesse with an 85, and it just kind of just sent this sort of team into overdrive. But I didn't. When one of your players scores 100, you probably you're in line for something if the rest play, and the other 3 did. Like I said, no goalkeeper. Obviously, did well there. Cap 240 though, which is probably more. More of the sort of realm that the listeners are going to be playing, I imagine, especially in rare form. Again, four-man team. I scored 229 points. I was just under the threshold. I needed Kulusevski forward card to do something in the last game, in the game that you guys went to. He scored 27. He had a bit of a stinker on paper, -7 AA score. So unluckily for me, didn't get my ETH. I had Enzo in there, I had Thiago Di Giallo in there, and I had an Albanese, who's a La Liga 2 player. But for me, it seems interesting. Like what was the top? So I needed 63 more points for a card, which is what, 293 points for a tier 3 rare. Is that high? No, but is it high when you got a cap of 240 ish? Like, it's not easy, you know what I'm saying? Because you're having all your players to outperform the L15s, real, or not all, but at least 4 of them probably. So yeah, I find it interesting. I've got no more sort of personal intake than that, to be honest. But so I'm interested to see what you guys sort of took from it. But yeah, 187 points away from winning it, which is what, like nearly 416 points.
Massive,
which
scores.
Is huge, isn't it? No
really big ones, definitely.
No bonus and no captaincy. Like,
it's crazy.
That's ridiculous, no?
Yeah, there's no captain, is there? So that essentially the absolute maximum you can score is 500. So
got you, okay. And somebody scored
absolute maximum you can score is 500 in that league. To score that many is actually pretty crazy.
It is, isn't it? Like,
you know,
that takes some doing.
Yeah, if a couple of those players were super rares and you put that team into an all-star pro, you'd be looking at over 500 points there probably. Once you start adding all of the extras up.
Yeah, 100%. I'm
going
to try and get. So I'm just going to try and get that lineup up and see what it actually entailed, because that just sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, there were some super high scores. Quinny, how did you get on? Did you get involved in cap mode yourself, or?
I found the cap modes, the rare, I scooshed it. I got 275, so I got the ETH, no problem. I wasn't too far off a card, and like my guys all did score kind of well. You know, I had a decent rare compliment there. It's super rare. I only finished on 221 points. Unfortunately, we've not got Tony with us today, and he could only manage a sub appearance at the weekend without a decisive. So if Tony had got the start or bagged a goal, I might have just crept over there. But I did. That team really showed to me, like, because the super rare team got 220 points, right? I got a goal from my striker, and my defender got a clean sheet all around game up to 60 points with no decisive. Nice. So I think having 2 greens in there for like a cap 240, like, is probably around normally like a reasonable expectation on a team that's a cap 240. You're not expecting 5 decisive or anything like that, you know. 1 decisive and a good strong build AA is kind of what you're looking to start with. And then the goalkeeper does okay. And then hopefully your other 2 players can get there. So I found not having any captain or any multiplier, there is not really much room for error, you know, in that case. You know, I was only 30 points off the threshold, as it were, with my goalkeeper doing a 41, my starting centre mid doing a 30, and then Tony, like I mentioned, super subbing in for a 26. So for those 3 scores to be where they're at, you're probably always going to have 2, 3 guys in your cap modes that might bring in a score like that, because the reality is their cap is fitting this mode, you know. So it's maybe like the experience I had with NBA didn't actually, it gave me confidence to play these modes in football. And I don't think any of that's lost. But I do think looking at this, football is obviously totally different to basketball. The lack of captain or any sort of bonus does make it harder than I thought it would have made it.
Definitely. I think I'm just looking back at mine to remind myself of who was in my cap 240 team, but I did manage to scrape the ETH just about in cap 240. I won a few cards in other divisions. I was unfortunate in kind of like the super rare divisions, but if I focus in on the cap mode, I'm just going to have a quick look at my team because I know it just scraped in. Where are we? Cap 240. So, yeah, goalkeeper was Talavera, put up 49. Gvardiol hit a 75.9. Then I've got Sanyan, who hit a 51. And then I got Wirtz and Bailey, 35.9 and 38.9 respectively. So yeah, I definitely had a couple of players that scored under and a couple that went quite big over what they were expected. And I think they just 251.5 points. So I just scraped the ETH, and I managed to do it in the limited cap 240 as well. Similarly, I had the same goalkeeper there. I had Meulenstein, who hit a 60 because he got a decisive. A 21.3 and a 35. I think one of those 35s was the Universitario game that didn't, you know, the coverage dropped out. So I might have done a bit better had that coverage had been like fixed. But then Berghaus put up 100. And like you were saying, Harry, I think if you hit 100 and then you just get a couple of like average performances, you can get close to it or scrape it. So yeah, that was kind of my experience of the cap modes. I think that was one thing that stuck out, glared out at me when I was setting my teams last week, was that I think Quinny mentioned it on a podcast before, that you're going to need a lot of goalkeepers to enter all these modes. So I really did have to look at, do I enter Cap 270 or do I go into Challenger with a rare team? Or, you know, do I use my super rares in the cap modes or do I put them into a D3? And I think before last weekend, I was definitely thinking that the big sort of losers, if you like, in the cap mode would be that D3 would become a lot more, or like All-Star Pro, as we call it now, like the Pro League would become more competitive, because people who have good supers but don't have a good goalkeeper or don't have a super goalkeeper are going to put their strongest supers into those D3, which we've seen already. But I think we might have seen it more with certain accounts. But actually, I had a little look at like where the points were being scored, and if you look at like the prize pool and the sort of what the points you needed to pick up the cards last weekend, I went through and I tried to compare like cap 270 to 240, 220 and All-Star. And actually, if you had a pretty decent lineup, especially if you've got bonus and XP, I worked out basically based on like an average of 7% bonus. If you put that team into All-Star Rare, you'd have been a lot better off in terms of card rewards than you would have been in any of the cap modes. And obviously, that's without any cap. You needed less points to hit a card in All-Star than you did in any of the cap modes, which is crazy. But I guess it meant, like, from looking at that, what you could take from that is that people targeted cap modes for the first week. But also, if you look at the reward pool, if you look in the reward pools and like set the order by like the value of the cards, some of the best rewards were paid out in cap 270. So interesting. That
they did say they wanted cap 270 to be a big pair.
Some of the rewards out of cap 270 were some of the best in their scarcities.
Is cap 270 the mode where I'm just looking at the
270 is like it's 270 cap, but you do still get your bonus, and I think
you're right, you do get that. I was just thinking about the rewards. Like I'm just looking now, do you get like a scarcity above in terms of like, say if you're in the rare, do you win super rares,
double bubble
right?
at the top?
Yeah, they double up.
So double bubble got you. Okay, I'm just looking now. Yeah, 7 supers. Okay, yeah, so I can see, that is obviously way more lucrative on paper than an all-star / all-star rare pro would be, because if you do finish first in cap 270, you're getting not only a star rare, but you're getting a tier 2 super. You know, there's 2 cards versus 1, and you can only win a star rare, I guess, on the top of all-star and all-star rare pro. And now you don't get there's no threshold there. Is there less of a reason to go? Like if you've got a really good team that fits into 270 rare, it's probably going there, isn't it, than all-star rare pro? All-star rare, my bad. If you had 5 strong rares, go on.
Well, let me ask you this, right? Let's imagine you've got a really good team that you want to put into 270, but it's 271 or 275. Okay. Would you keep that team fully assembled and just put it into All-Star? Or would you take some good pieces out of that and try and appropriate some sort of different team? What do you think you guys would do, what young people will do?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if you've got a couple of if you've got 2 supers that can complement 3 of those rares, then that could potentially go into an all-star rare pro for me. But if it doesn't, then it's tough. It depends on the other pieces is the issue with that question, I guess. But if it is a 271 lineup and you can't do anything else with it other than play those 5, then I mean you're forced to just pop it into all-star rare, aren't you? Really, I imagine, unless it's regional and it can pop into a region nicely. But if it's a mixed bunch of players in terms of regions, then I mean you're left with no choice, are you really?
Yeah, well, I'm just like, obviously it's kind of an open question, so it does depend on, like you said, like actual what cards people have and all the rest of it. But what I'm kind of thinking when I'm asking that is like, I'm thinking, imagine I had a really strong team. I'm like, oh wow, this is going to be around the 270 mark, and then I go to plug it in, and it's 271, and I can't do it. I'm thinking, right, I would probably just roll that into All-Star and forget about it. But now what I want to hear from you guys is what you think the likelihood of maybe the average person will take maybe the good cheat code card or 2 out of that team and then just try and make a 240 team with other sub-prime guys, maybe cost himself a good all-star team to try and make a 240 work to satisfy a cap? Or do you think people would just take their best team that doesn't quite fit 270, not touch it, and just put it into all-star, or chop it into pieces and I'll make a wee team there and I'll make a wee team there instead with these good pieces or whatever.
That's where I'm kind of like racking my brains at the moment.
That's where you're at, Stish.
Fair enough. Exactly it. Like, I'm finding that in sort of, because I've last weekend I found that like I had a lot of super rares that just didn't get used because I didn't have enough super rare goalies to enter all the cap modes and the regionals. So like at the moment I've only really got 2 goalkeepers that are likely to play. So one of them goes last weekend, one of them went in U23 and the other one went in All-Star super rare. So I didn't even attempt the cap modes last weekend. But I had a win in All-Star super rare. I finished 18th overall in the end,
Nice.
which was okay. It could have been higher, but finishing 18th, I won a card that was worth about, I think I sold it for 180 quid, which is decent if you treat that a bit like a threshold, right? You're not going to win every time. And obviously, if you hit a tier 3, that might be like less than that, obviously. So I was quite fortunate that it was a younger player who may come on to something good. And it was the number 1 super rare. So it shifted. I had a few offers on it. It wasn't a player that I think I had much use for in the short term. So I just thought, let me just get rid of it, get some ETH in the bank and treat it like a threshold. Whereas this week, I had a little look at what I can do with the super rares I've got available. And I decided at the moment, as it stands, I'm looking at cap 240 because I think I've got a 238, which looks like they're all starters on paper.
Nice.
Some of them are definitely a lot lower on their averages than they should be. I'm not expecting it to land in cards. I don't think there's anyone in there that's like that capable of a decisive. They're all kind of like good all-around scorers. So the thinking is if they all have an average game, I should hit the threshold. But I'm not putting it in there thinking it's going to win a card. And that's like, if I move that into All-Star, looking at what is in there now and what I've got left, the only way I can really strengthen that is by taking the supers out of my Challenger Europe Rare Pro maybe, or my All-Star, and swapping them out for the 2 weak links, if you like, and then putting that in All-Star. That's causing me that's where my issue is at the moment is that. And if you can definitely, I'm sure, apply that to people who play limited and a bit of rare. It's like I play rare and super rare, and I've got a couple of uniques that I use to boost up my super rare offerings. But I'm sure this is exactly what goes on with people who've got like a big unique gallery and a few rares. And it's like, you can probably apply this across all scarcities. And I think that, yeah, it's made me realize I probably need more goalkeepers. And I've got quite a few, but a lot of them are not playing. So it's like, I've got all these goalkeepers I'm hoping come good one day, because like more of like a long-term hold that, you know, you only need that goalkeeper to start playing and they double the value overnight. So they're more like, that's more of a trading strategy of mine. But in terms of utility, it leaves me in a sticky position at the minute where I'm not really in any of the regions. I'm like, for this weekend, I might be looking at Challenger Europe Rare Pro, mostly because Celtic aren't playing. And I think MD could play Porto. So it's like Challenger could be decent. I've got PSV and Ajax cards. PSV and Ajax both have favourable fixture this weekend. So I think I'm in with a good shout in Challenger this weekend. But if not, I could move a couple of those supers out of Challenger and into that cap 240 and have a proper go at All-Star. But I don't know. I think I'm definitely tempted by the threshold because I won it in rare and limited last weekend. I think I'm almost like, I don't feel guilty targeting it, you know. Like, oh, you know, it's $100. It's quite a decent little amount of Ethereum. That it's not like, you know, it's better than most tier 3 rare wins that you might pick up in like maybe Challenger Rare or something like that, which is where I'll end up if I take the supers out of the Rare Pro realistically, I think. But yeah, that's sort of conundrum.
I was just thinking about your contemplation then, and like, I mean, it's always easier to like apply it to yourself in that sense, and yours is more, you know, does it go into regions, does it go into cap, and that depends on fixtures, I guess, and obviously prize pool as well. But then I was just having a little think then in my head, and it's like, you know, I try and play under 23 super every weekend as long as I have the goalkeeper for it, and I do for now, right? and I have a unique most of the time to try and get in there. But then I was just thinking in my head, if, you know, realistically, if this doesn't become, or like if for 1 week, let's just say the fixtures just don't fall my way too much, I could then turn that 4-man super rare and 1 unique, as long as I have other super rares to get rid of that unique, and play it in cap 240, and basically not guarantee myself the 200. I'm not guaranteeing myself the threshold, but I'm putting myself, you know, I'm buying a ticket to at minimum, you know, get the threshold, and then if it pops off a little bit more than I expected to, then, you know, you could always get a card as well. And I'm sort of stopping myself from playing against all these massive Mbappe super rares and Haaland super rares in the under 23 super rare division, because now the prizes are a lot more lucrative. There's a star rare on top of, there's a double bubble, like Quinny likes to call it, on top of on the podium. So, you know, looking at some, like my goalkeeper's L15 is only 43. I look at that and go, well, I could throw this into cap 240 super rare and kind of be okay with, if I won $100, I'd be, or whatever it is, euro, I'd be over the moon with that for a weekend, because I might end up with nothing in D2 in under 23 super rare, because last week I scored like 270 points, which is okay. 370 points, and I was like 15 points away from a card. That could have potentially been a cap 240 super rare team, and I could have banked 100, you know, euros, dollars, whatever, at a minimum. So it's like, in my head, I've now have to have that contemplation. Do I play it safe and aim for the Ethereum, even though it's not crazy safe, but it's safer than going against the massive cards that I might face in under 23 super rare, you know? Yeah,
that's a good point. And someone in the chat's just mentioned, and I think this is correct as well, but on the super rare cap 240 last week, you only needed 260 to win a card.
Interesting.
So 260 wins a card as well as the $100. When you put it, when you think of it like that, it's actually quite obtainable, or it was last weekend anyway. We'll see what people do this weekend after they saw. But yeah, your 370, was that with a unique or without?
It was with the unique, but the unique didn't even pop off, to be fair. I could have played Yari Vasharin with a lower L15 and he scored 100. So in theory, it could have been a lot higher. The unique didn't do anything on paper. So it scored.
If you took away all of those like percentage bonuses, you would have probably been in the cards in super rare with a bit of tinkering.
So I'm looking at a 49.5 from my goalie, 61 from Jordan Bayer. This is without bonuses. 46 from Alan Varela. João Mario scored 71. He got an assist. So you're looking at
210 or so, 220.
210, and then let's say Yari was the other mid. You're looking at 310 basically.
You would have been right up there. I'm going to try.
The unique, Harry.
Jesus Christ.
Let's have a look at cap 240 super rare while we're here.
I was doing that while you're pulling that up, Stish. I was doing a thing with the members on my stream yesterday, and we were looking at the difference in the limited divisions to exactly what we're kind of talking about the now. And it did definitely feel like All-Star. Like, I can't remember the exact numbers, right? So I was just kind of doing it for individual galleries. People were asking me whether they should prioritize their lineups this week, kind of thing. And like All-Star Limited last week, again, I might be getting this a wee bit wrong, but obviously you've got XP, you've got a captain, you don't have any cap restrictions, but it was like 290 points to break into Tier 3 Limited, which Tier 3 Limited, as we know, are worth, you know, a kick in the teeth. They're not worth much, you know, but but in the cap modes, without XP and without multiplier, you would have needed 320 to break into, and I think that was cap 240 I was looking at, to break into the Tier 3 Limiteds. Kind of thing. So it definitely does, you know, and again, from what you've looked at there, Stishy, with the rares, it does definitely feel like, and we're probably going to have this massive sea change every week, because it kind of comes back to the question I asked a little bit as well, because sometimes, like, if you've got a cap 270, 240, 220 team you're excited about, it's probably built on one or two guys, you know, that have the cheat codes, that have the fixture, that have the whatever going in their favour, you know. And if you believe, kind of like Harry's talking about with his goalkeeper there, if you believe you've got one of the cheat codes of the week, then you're going to put all the best stuff around them in a cap mode, and you're going to try and maximize it. Because in basketball, a lot of people will go out and buy the cheat codes. In football, it's not as straightforward as that, because the options available is fucking countless, and nothing's guaranteed on the pitch. You can't forecast that they're going to get 4 interceptions. That doesn't happen in football, you know. So yeah, if people get the sniff of, oh, I've got a goalkeeper at 32, or it feels like people are going hammer and tongs at the cap mode now. So that will change on fixtures. No Celtic this week, hard game in Portugal, hard game here, blah blah blah, whatever. Maybe there's not many of those cheat cards come up, and more people go into regions and stuff. And maybe the caps, there's no cheat codey cards, and then we come back next week and we look at it and we go, oh Jesus, this week it was the opposite of the week before. Maybe.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that every other week, innit? It's like we're going to be so focused on where the rewards were getting placed, because I think there was a lot of sort of fuss online about rewards. I got really shit rewards this week as well. Like a lot of people were moaning about their rewards online, but I don't think that's like a reflection of this game week. I think it's just the way it's maybe worked out. But because maybe most of those rewards are a bit more spread across multiple divisions, as opposed to like one place being where all the big cards got paid out, like in All-Star or U23 or something like that, right? So yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how it kind of pans out. To get back to Harry, if you'd have put Vasharan in that team and dropped your unique out and put it in cap 240, you'd have been joint 5th, 329.
329 was, I'm just looking. So 5th won a card which was worth on Sorare Data's valuations at 0.57. Roman Thomas, 34 years old, mine. But regardless, still, and then the ETH on top. So you're looking at like a 0.7 win, basically.
Yeah.
Which is nuts, really.
I think this is it. It's just like, if you've got that, you would be. These are the things that, again, I didn't really think I'd be that concerned about when they first. I thought I might be. Maybe I thought I'd have more. I think the realization kicked in this week. Was like, I'm not able to field as many good teams as I thought I was going to be. I thought, cap mode will be fine. I'll be loads of stuff left over that's not gone anywhere. But you still need a goalkeeper, and you probably need all your players to play. You can't have 5 poor players. You need a few good players in that 240 to hit those. So if you're not going to,
you need a decisive or two, don't you?
Yeah, you do.
Easy,
and you can't just enter it with like whatever's left. You need to target it if you're otherwise you're better off just putting it in All-Star, or like splitting it up in and making teams better elsewhere. And I didn't really think it would be like that, but now that's the difference. I think you notice, isn't it, when there's no bonus on the cards, a 250 score, sorry, is not as easy as it sounds.
No.
Not as easy as it sounds.
It's crazy though. This is
start and you're in trouble, basically.
No, oh my god, massively. And I just think this is making the game way harder, which is not a bad thing in a weird way. Like it probably needed to happen. We've been saying it for a while. Like, people were milking the 205 threshold for God knows how long, and that adds up over 2-3 years, really, doesn't it? 25 quid twice a week if you can hit it. Most weren't, but regardless, it was there. And I just think this was probably needed. It's going to take a bit of time, because we're in terms of how long we've been playing, we're veterans in theory on paper, but that doesn't mean to say that we can, because it's new to all of us. We're all in the same boat and we're all facing it at the same time. Regardless of me, if us three have been playing for 2 years plus or whatever, doesn't we're gonna have some better cards because we've been playing longer on paper, if you've done well with your gallery or whatever. But ultimately, the contemplations won't change. They're the same week in, week out, and I think it's gonna be. I'm not saying it's a level playing field, because this game clearly isn't, because the person who started first on this game is gonna have just more options, right? But ultimately, the contemplations that we have each week and the dilemmas are all very similar. And I think regardless of if you're playing limited, super rare, whatever level you're playing at, I just think it's it doesn't matter. What I'm getting at is, it doesn't matter how long you've been playing this game. It's still a headache, regardless of where you're at, how many cards you've got. It's still going to be, but in a very positive way. It's a positive headache, because it's all on you. You decide where you want to play your players. And you're only going to know at the end of the game how you've got on. But ultimately, it's easy to look back and be like, oh well, I should have, like we said, we should have calculated the Irish Sharon. I could have been 5th here and there. But you take that on board and you look at that now, and I go, okay, that now gives me more of a reason why I should play this week. Do you get what I'm saying? Assess what you've done on the weekend. I've made my mistakes, but ultimately, if you can learn from them and kind of react to them is kind of where this game's going now, isn't it? It's really sort of, you really need to just capitalize on past mistakes and kind of, kick on from there.
Yeah. I mean, just talking to you two now in here and looking at like what I kind of lined up for the weekend, I'm already starting to double check myself. Like,
Well, make sure you don't miss the deadline stream this week, Stishy boy.
Yes, yeah. I'll get in there this time and I won't miss any of the action or the alpha. But I am looking at that 240 cap mode super rare that I've kind of like launched in there. And the more I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, I think you need to put someone in there who might hit a decisive, don't you, really? If you want to win a card, if it's just about scraping the ETH, you're all right with all around. But if you are hoping to win a card, I probably need to look at that and think I need to stick a forward who's going to get a goal. And I think that's part of my problem this weekend is I don't have a forward with a really favourable fixture. I've got some good midfielders, but I don't have a forward who I can go, yep, that player's going to bang this weekend. I think Cherky has a tough game at home, and he's my informed forward at the moment. Him and Colidio. Colidio has an away game, I think, and Cherky's at home to Lens.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
which is a tougher game. They
for sure.
He might not have the high flying games he's had. He had another good game last night in the cup.
Last night, yeah.
Had a great game there. So if he can keep this form going, then fantastic. But Cherky's in my U23 this weekend. I think like it'd be silly not to, especially seeing the rewards that came out of that last weekend. It's like having a team with a unique player and they're all U23s, and you got some forwards who are capable of a decisive. It's so hard to not look at that and go, I'm in there this week.
100%.
Yeah. And it's that U23 utility as well. I don't know about you, Harry, but my U23 goalkeeper is Gaetan Cook, who ages out in the summer. Same. So I'm like, I don't lose him in U23 every week. I feel dirty. I feel like I'm wasting him. If I don't enter that, it's a Challenger. And this would be a good weekend to consider Challenger because there's no Celtic, because Benfica and Porto have a tough game.
True.
And obviously, given the atrocities that are going on over in Turkey as well, there's no games there. So Challenger is going to be light of a lot of the heavyweights this weekend. So if you're going to consider it any weekend, I think it's this one. If you got Ajax and PSV cards like I do, but yeah, it's going to be a busy evening of messing about on my laptop. I think my missus is going to be bored with me not talking about, sadly.
Another thing I was going to throw out in the podcast today as well, and again, I got this from a lot of the members I was chatting away with, particularly the guys that are playing in Limited and whatever. The rare kickoff division, I've not managed to play any kickoff divisions yet. I'm just wondering if you guys have as well. But the rare kickoff division is very fun to build a team for if you've got under 10 rares, because Limiteds aren't, most people listening to this have a limited gallery of some sort of means already. And there's no caps, there's no restrictions on it, like the reward pool's okay and whatever. But if you've got some boss limiteds and you don't mind picking up a wee rare for 80 quid or something, because some rares that you can play in this kickoff mode, they can get you the scores you need, don't cost that much, particularly if you've got the limiteds backing them up. But I think a lot of people I was talking to anyway really underestimated that I'm not playing rare kickoff. You're never going to see me in there. You're never going to see anyone on this podcast in rare kickoff, because we're never going to have less than 10 rares, And we're talking earlier on the cap modes, running away from Haalands and Mbappes. But these kickoff modes is the best way to run away from people like us, depending on what scarcity you're at. If you're worried about the Haalands and whatever, super rare kick, depending on how many super rares you've got, unique kickoff, and rare, of course. And I think because particularly a lot of people like us that are like front facing and maybe thinking about strategy and all the rest of it, no one's really looking, no one with any real means on a gallery who's thinking about being optimal and winning and doing all this stuff is really making any strategy or really inroads towards kickoff. And I think last week, probably the next week or two, a lot of these smaller accounts at each of the levels will have their way with, getting some easy wins under their belt before maybe some of those guys that have a gallery on the fence make up their mind with what they're doing or see an opportunity to strike against. Have you done anything from the kickoff yourself?
I haven't, no, mate. I'm just looking at. Well, I can't enter the rare and the super rare one, well, for obvious reasons. I could enter the unique one. I have a unique, but I don't have the excess super rare goalies to kind of, risk it there. Funny story. I'm trying to look for the limited kickoff because I only have 4 limited cards, and it's not even on there for me. Like, it doesn't even say locked.
There's no limited kickoff anymore. So
rather
than limited kickoff, what they do is they've got it's the league version semi-pro. So that's where you put in 1 limited and 4 commons, and that's for all the league specific ones. So, and do you know an interesting detail I'll share on the podcast around that, right? Is see the commons that you draft for like
you can use double use them, can't you? If that makes sense.
Double use them. Yep.
Yeah.
So you don't need to worry about, I've used him in the draft, I can't use him in that mode. So we went out there for the audience if you've missed that.
Yeah, that is massive. And I was just gonna Stitch, I was just gonna say one of my best mates who been long-term FPL player, likes a bet on the weekend type of thing, but nothing no more than like a $5 type of thing. And he's recently been in my messages giving me the old, I've just started so rare. Like I did the draft last week, you did the Prem draft, and now this week he's bought himself a Andreas Pereira limited to go into the semi-pro Prem. Well, yeah, semi-pro Prem, is that what we're calling it? Yeah, semi-pro Premier League competition. Yeah, so he's using his 4 commons. He's using 1 limited. The limited gets a score of an increased score of 50% bonus. You must have 10 or less limited to enter. And you're looking at, there's just under 4,000 players in that right now, and 200 prizes. Compare that to the draft mode. You're looking at, again, obviously 200 prizes, but a crazy amount of entrants. Well, it was like 180,000 last week, wasn't it? So, it just, by buying 1 card, he's managed to eliminate. So there's 165,000 basically in the Premier League Amateur right now. So by buying 1 Andreas Pereira card, which I don't know how much Andreas Pereira costs, but I can't imagine it's more than like a tenner. Maybe he's like 15. Like, he's eliminated a crazy percentage of players, and now he's in a much smaller pool of entrants for the same amount of prizes, and he can win some Premier League tickets. Apparently, that's the thing this week, which is cool.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking now. So Andreas Pereira, I'm just looking how much he is. Yeah, okay, he's 20 quid basically, and now he can reuse those commons as much as he likes. He can swap 2 in and out every weekend as he likes. Like you said, you can do the double bubble. So he's not only still playing the amateur, he can still reuse his commons or 4 commons for the semi-pro league, and it just keeps him in the loop. And then eventually you'll probably go and buy 4 more limited Premier League players, because he plays FPL. He knows the Premier League better than any other league for now. And I think that is going to be I know this is a different conversation, but that is just going to be many people's sort of entry point into Sorare right now, because, the Premier League cards don't score that well, unfortunately, for the most part. But ultimately, we know their faces. That's just as simple as it. Yeah. Like, that is it. My mates know who Andreas Pereira is. Like, that's ultimately how it sort of goes. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's great for onboarding. It's given and especially the draft system and the way they're doing it now compared to years before. It was always the casual league and it was 2 prizes. Like, it was just a bit of a nightmare, wasn't it? In terms of wanting to stay in the casual league. And in one side of things, that was a good thing, because people would kickstart their limited and rare careers very quickly upon entering the casual, because it wasn't that enticing. Problem is with this, the draft and the semi-pro is quite enticing to just stay there for a little while, isn't it? Which is an issue in terms of progression. Like, maybe progression is going to be a bit slower, which might be fine. Sorare might be okay with that. But ultimately, I think it's a good thing, because they're going to understand the game a lot better. They're going to be in that lower sort of tier for a lot longer, and just really get to know the game, to a higher degree, to then kick on eventually, rather than just jump straight from casual for 1 week. I've had enough of this. I finished 100,000 out of whatever. I didn't win anything. Sack it off. I know there's still that amount of players playing now, but there's 200 prizes. There's a lot more on offer, although it's still a tiny percentage compared to the entrants, but it's a free to play. What can you expect, right? So I just to put that point, just to sort of conclude that point, I just do really think the semi-pro and then go into the pro as well for these sort of new players is actually massive.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just trying to look now at another one we don't talk about is the Legends Challenge, because they changed the prize pool for that. And I've gone into like the rewards from last week, and I can't find the rewards for the Legends Challenge at all. So I'm now on someone's. I'm now on one of the people who won a tier 0 from the Legend Challenge, in the rare division. I'm just trying to find what they won. I maybe need to go into. So someone who came second in the Legends Pro won a Riyad Mahrez rare.
Wow,
that's a pretty decent prize, right? No one really talks about what's going on down in those Legends.
Yeah, I think Legends is a mad racket that no one's told me about. I only realised about a week or two ago that you get real rewards in that, and it wasn't just more Legends.
Yeah,
that's been kept right quiet by the people right at the top of that leaderboard.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like the top 3 was like a Bottler Boar, Bellamar, and Chamu, and I'm like, I know I've seen those names. So yeah, Chamu came second and won a Riyad Mahrez.
I now get why Sean Newsham plays with Legends as often as he does. I've always never understood, but it now absolutely. I'm thinking I know somebody that plays Legends.
I've got 4 Legend cards, and 2 of them are Ajax forwards. So the idea was like, if an Ajax forward, which normally happens, right? Berghaus scored 100 last weekend, so straight away I've got 2 cards on 100 in my Legends team because I've got Cruyff and I've got Van Basten Ajax forward cards. So they play as my 2 forwards, and then I've got the option of putting in a Bayern midfielder, which is essentially a Kimmich most weekends, or a Juventus midfielder like my Zidane. And then I fill the other 2 slots because you can only use 3. So I need a goalkeeper and a defender who are going to keep a clean sheet, basically. And since I came in with that strategy, I haven't won anything. I've still not won anything. In limited, I think it's different because you can just go out and buy those cards and put them in every week. But in rare,
buy a timber for defense and stuff like that.
Yeah, in rare, you've got. I mean, looking at this other upcoming.
The rare one's funny because you can put all the scarcities into the rare one, can't you?
Can you?
Yeah, so I think if you've got a Legends unique, it doesn't really change the score of it. But you don't need to go and buy a rare version, you know.
Rare, super rare, and unique cards allowed. That's interesting because if you've got a rare, you need to have a rare or better legend to enter it. But if you've got 3 legends, if you had the 3 legends that I had in rare, for example, you only need to put another couple of decent scorers in and maybe scrape a top 20 reward. And yeah, there's 3-star rares in that pool. You know, 9 tier 1s, or sorry, 5 tier 1s, and then 10 tier 2s. And if Riyad Mahrez was a podium, now you know why PSU fans may be looking at those legends. But legends is like no one's talking about it. It's tucked away at the bottom of all of the things. I was just sorting my teams out and I forgot it was there. I just looked at it and I thought, what do people win in legends? I haven't seen, because I knew that they changed it. For you used to just win a legend card. It's like the reason I bought mine was to treat that as like a threshold, like win a legend. Worst case is worth a tenner or something like that. Like with limiteds, that's not a bad reward. Like it's better than most tier 3 limiteds, right? But I haven't won anything. I've never won anything in it. There's only 100 paid out in limited, and there's 10 times the amount of entries in it. There's only 138 in the rare, in the Challenge Pro, and there's 20 cards in there, so might be worth a look as well. I just feel like at this point we all need to just go out and start buying loads of goalkeepers because we'll otherwise, we're just putting loads of players into training. That I think that's the thing now, is that you need goalkeepers. You really need goalkeepers now, and it's hard to. I don't know if anyone's tried to buy starting goalkeepers from anyone at the moment, but no one gives you a good price on a starting goalkeeper right now. You have to take a punt on a goalie that's just gone out injured or something, and you're hoping it isn't a long-term injury, that kind of thing. Or maybe they've just signed a new keeper and no one's sure who the number 1's going to be when it starts in a couple of weeks. So we talk about this on the podcast all the time, but always in the market for a goalkeeper. But yeah, I think I thought I'd get some clarity coming on in and talking to you boys about the weekend coming up, but I feel more confused than ever.
This is why like I don't miss having a gallery that like was quite fluid in a way, because like a year and a half ago I was playing a bit of Challenger, a bit of Champion, bit of under 23, bit of All-Star Pro, right? I had like 4 main teams. I don't now this cap mode's into play and whatever. I feel like my my direction would be so much more skewed and all over the place, which is not a bad thing because it does bring complications to the game and it brings more complexities and it is more fun in a weird messed up way. But like for someone like me, my brain does well with like, I like having like tunnel vision. And yeah, I've said I have the complication of, or the contemplation, sorry, of, you know, I could go under 23 Super or I could play it in capped. That's like that's all I can do is like, yes, it's like one or two. Where like, if you've got a fluid gallery, like yourself, Stish, and like you as well, Quinny, but I'd say more so Stish in the example you've just given me, not only could your players play under 23, they could go into regional, they could go into All-Star Pro, and they could still go into caps. So you've got that sort of, you know, the quadruple issue basically, where I've only got like a double issue is under 23 or capped. I can't go into regional really, like it's not even in my thought process, where because you play it now and again, it is in your thought process. And if you've got all those cards that can mingle with each other, I think it does make it a bit of a headache, which like I said, is not necessarily terrible because it makes the game fun in a weird way. It keeps us on the game a lot longer. We're contemplating longer. Do we need to buy this guy? Oh, this guy got an L15 or 40. I probably need to just go out and get him for this week. It just brings a lot more complexity to the game. And I think overall it is great, but it's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah. That's where I'm at. I think just sometimes I'm looking at other leagues and I'm like, oh, I've got some cards there, but I'm lacking the goalkeeper or something like that. And I think this weekend, like I started playing Champ Euro Rare again recently because I do have some good cards in that. And I've got 2 goalkeepers that are eligible, but I'm using one of them in U23 this weekend. So I've only really got one. But now I looked at it, I was like, I think I'm going to put him in cap 240 just to be a bit more sensible than going into rare. But then it's annoying because I do have some really good Champ Euro cards with good bonuses as well. Like, you know, I've got Di Lorenzo on 10%. I've got a Verts on 9.5. I've got a Musiala on 9.5. Why wouldn't I use them in there?
Yeah,
I don't.
Good point.
These are the problems at the minute because I think looking at the Premier League as well, I'd love to win some Premier League rewards. And if you want to go and try and win them, then it makes sense to go into like Champ Euro Rare, right?
Yeah, but they seem to be giving them out in cap. They seem to be sort of just because that's the thing. I remember when the Dutch league first came out, they just give them out to anybody basically in the first couple of weeks because there's a surplus of them. We're not at the start of the season. We're midway through. There's probably a rush, if anything, really just to get a lot of the first sort of mints out there. Not only sell them in auction, but also to sort of reward them. I've seen loads of people win Premier League cards this weekend. To be fair. I wasn't one of them, but I did see a lot on social media that did.
Yeah. Quinny, with the weekend in hand, no Celtic cards for SO5. What's your weekend looking like? A bit quieter this week.
Well, very similar to what you guys are saying. I've been kind of reading the writing on the wall because I've got my little chart on the wall with all my players, my teams in that. For the last couple of weeks waiting for this stuff, and like the goalkeeper thing hasn't caught me by surprise, but I've just not got myself like I still have the need for 2 goalkeepers, but I probably only had the need for 1 before the weekend. But like you was talking about there, I'd done a trade over the weekend where I took a bunch of questionable goalkeepers, in my opinion anyway. Looks like one of them might be a bit less questionable now. And try and turn them into a rock solid, steady goalkeeper, you know, because anyone that's listened to me or watched me over the last year will know how much of a hero that David Soria has been for me as a goalkeeper. And he's a good kind of mid-table guy, but there is no threat to his job whatsoever. And that is the value attached to that is any scarcity of a goalkeeper is wildly underestimated. So like I took a wee bit, another kind of short-term loss on getting rid of 2 keepers I could play this week to only have 1 in the trade as it went down. And I'm kind of enjoying the problem of knowing no matter where I can play my team, if it's cap, if it's region, if it's all-star, but I know it's going to be a good team because I've only got 3 goalkeepers. And in reality, for this weekend I'm talking, in reality, I could probably service 5 goalkeepers, you know, and that's a kind of strategy I've spoke about before sometimes when like, I don't think many people I bump into these days is maybe in this situation, but time's gone by. There's been lots of situations where I speak to people either on content or people on the live chat, and they're like, oh, limited players, rare players. I'm making 6, 7, 8 teams a week and I'm not winning anything. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is just maybe sell a goalkeeper or two, you know, and you've still got the same quality of player, but it gets diluted across less teams, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I'm kind of in that position. So even though I've only got 3 teams out, I'm not any less confident on 1 or 2 of them, because that's all I'm looking for most game weeks, to shine and come out on top. And yes, Celtic aren't playing, but my US unique, who is a former Celtic player, he will be playing. He's got a bit of a derby. It's Palace at home to Brighton for big odds on Edward, who's odds on to start, and it's probably going to be odds on to score as well. That'll make me odds on for the podium, I hope, you know. So only 3 teams for me, but it should be quite strong. And again, I've got no shame in, like, my best team is always going to go into the best prize pool I can fight for, but I've got no shame in, like, my super rares and my rares then going into 240s, because for me, like, this is all I do is play so rare, basically. Like, pulling that I don't care. Like, that's an important part of my gameplay experience is that 240 element. So I've got 240 teams, rare and super rare, and then I'm going after all-star super rare with the Eddie unique. And yeah, roll on next weekend when we get Celtic back, and then roll on the next weekend when we get some MLS goalkeepers in action, because the keepers I'm down, I'm only actually really, and I stress to remind everyone in the audience this as well, is I'm only actually down those goalkeepers, and this is for you in the audience as well, until MLS comes back and until Japan comes back, you know, because some of you guys will have dormant goalkeepers and you might look at your teams now and go, crap, I need 3 more European guys. But really in a week or 2, you don't really need them as desperately as you might do today. And if you can wait, you'll probably still need those goalkeepers. But you know what? When MLS and J&K are all in season, and Russia, somebody mentioned that in the live chat earlier, by the way, Russia 5th of March return, then that premium on the price of the European goalkeepers will lessen, you know, and you might not have as hard a deal to get them in the line. Yeah, you're going to lose out by not having them for the next 2 or 3 weeks or something, but hey, you can't have everything your own way. It's kind of what I'm telling myself, and I would urge to remind everyone in the audience out there that you probably have some non-EU stuff that might not be too far away from returning.
There is someone in the audience who is a Palace fan who is telling you that Edouard is probably going to start on the bench on the weekend.
No.
And he predicts a Mateta early sub if he's ineffectual.
No.
You don't want to hear none of that.
Eddie's starting. This is a big... Eddie shows up in the derby games. Eddie's starting this. No 2 ways about it. I'm a Palace expert now. I don't know if he's know this, but I'm now a Crystal Palace expert. So come down to my neck of the woods, mate. We'll have some Caribbean and go catch a game. We'll have to give Dan a shout and see if he's got any tickets going. That's it.
Someone else in the chat actually has had me literally just scouring the sort of Premier League rankings on Sorare data
for some end products. Dish. I've seen that request. Did you do it?
I did it. I think I've got an answer for them. So the question was, you know, like, what is a good player to pick up for like under €7? I need to check exactly how much that is in ETH because I can't filter out by like euro price. But looking at the rankings and sort of some of the recent scores and the fixtures, well, maybe not a fixture this weekend, but Ashley Young at Aston Villa has played all of the last games. He's got an L5 of 57.6. And you can pick him up for around about that price on auction. So I'd say Ashley Young at the moment looks like one. But I think you can pick up a lot. I know Mr. Bumcrack in the chat, who is the Palace fan. We were talking about Joachim Anderson at Crystal Palace being a real bargain on the platform at the moment because he's been out injured. And obviously Chris Richards has done a great job while he's been there. But I'm pretty sure you can pick Anderson up for pennies at the moment. And you'd expect him to like regain his starting position at some point. I think, you know, if Richards hadn't done as well as he has done, he'd already be back in. But Anderson is back in training as far as I'm aware. And I'd expect him to be starting next to Mark Gahey at some point soon. But like I said, Richards is probably going to have a poor game or a quiet game. He's been pretty decent for Palace covering for Anderson. But Anderson is really cheap. And yeah, if you can be patient and you don't need to use him straight away, he might be worth a one to pick up and sit on for a few weeks until he gets back in the team. But he, for me, is probably Palace's best centre back. You know, Mark Guehi's great, but
João Moutinho £6.
João Moutinho £6. Yeah. Apparently, Rafie got his super rare for £200. Joe Tremaliston. I think that's a big purchase right there. I think that's a bargain. But I remember seeing his number one rare went really cheap. I can't remember what it was, but I remember looking at it thinking that is a bargain. Whoever got that is an international as well. You're going to get used on international game weeks, which, you know, a lot of newcomers might not realise. But, you know, when the Premier League breaks, if you have international players, you can use them for their sort of World Cup qualifiers, all that stuff that we got coming, Euros qualifiers, all these things that are covered. Have either of you had a look already? Do you ever look at the international breaks and think, pick this player up, pick that player up?
The Scottish players, I kind of, well, because I got that John McGinn, a big part of that is the Scotland play, because him and McGregor are nailed on to play for Scotland in midfield. I've got Hendry, who should come in as the defender, and I've got Gordon if he does get, it looks like he's coming back, and he should be the Scotland number one. So then, along with somebody like Unal or Giacomakis or something, I reckon I've got an international team there. But beyond, I wouldn't purposely go and do that. But I've got the McGregor, I've got the Hendry, and then McGinn's available, and I'm like, okay. And then, you know, but the internationals, some guys pull out, like Jonathan Gargi, the guy that runs Sorare Israel. He's got a beast of a little stack going on the go for like Nations League Group F, and it's like he's got the goalkeeper from there's a goalkeeper that's just come on the platform at Southampton, I think, and there may be like the Estonian national team keeper. They're under 23 as well.
It's the Arsenal. Yeah, it's the Arsenal.
The Arsenal guy.
Yeah.
So he picks up lots of guys like this. There's another guy from Luxembourg that was on the Road to Glory series who plays for Mainz in the Bundesliga.
Yes,
and he does quite okay with those ones, because, you know, like, national team, no one really stacks against it. But I was actually quite intrigued to run into that £7 Premier League thing after I seen you took the lead on it, Stish. And I say Moutinho come up. I think I like Christopher Ayer. He's a £5. And there was another good player or two towards the top of the value list. Jeffrey Schlupp is £6.
Schlupp's a good one.
Yeah. And Tom Kearney of Fulham is £2. If you think he's worth £2, maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know.
Mikalenko as well down there.
Yeah,
there was one other player that grabbed me.
Hopefully improves. Yeah, there's quite a few. I mean, I picked up John Joe Shelby rare for I think £45, and
nice.
He was more of a, like, I think if he starts to play, like if
Azpilicueta £5.
If you think long term as well, like John McGinn, you can pick him up for about €7. He's a good player. Connor Cody's down there. You know, you've got options in around that sort of price point. But I think, like, picking up a player like John Joe Shelby as well, like, the beauty of these Premier League players is if you do have patience and they become Championship players next season, then there are some bargains to be had, because any of these Premier League clubs going down into the Championship should dominate or be decent next season.
Top half-ish, yeah.
If you can be patient and wait and sort of like start in your head building a team for like September next year, then this is the time of picking some of those. Some of the youngsters in the decent teams that might go down. You know, like Southampton for me look done. I think they're down. They're going down.
Yeah,
and they've got a lot of good youth. They'll lose. You know, they'll lose the Ward-Prowses. They'll lose those kind of players. So they'll be left with youth. And some of those players probably have cards on the platform. You just got to pick them up now for a tenner, £20, and then next season sling them in D2 Europe or All-Star, and probably, you know, be quite successful with them.
They've got some wicked youngsters, Southampton, like that Roman Lavia, Bella Kotchap, Samuel Adozi. They're all like ex-Man City boys, basically. Yeah. They just decided to leave.
They've got a bunch of them in the summer, didn't they?
Yeah, they just splash big money on him as well. It's like, well, big money, but, you know, 15, 10 mils here and there. They went under the radar. They're all playing first team Premier League football, and no one's really batting an eyelid. Yeah, their scores might not, you know, correlate very well on our platform right now. But like you said, if they do go down, which it does look like they're done and dusted really on the field and on paper, I guess, right now, you know, those scores turn into big scores. Like, a good example is like Morgan Gibbs-White last year, played for Sheffield United on loan. Like, on the, you know, not most game weeks, but he was smashing like 80 plus, not just AA, you know, he was getting decisive, he's on set pieces. he's somebody that, you know, in the Prem is translated a little bit. He's not a £50 million player like I think the fee ended up rising to, but in the Championship, those type of players, you know, become very lucrative. Like Sanderberg has been one of them for a little while, hasn't he? Even though he's in the Champ still now. I'm thinking, like, if Forest do go down, I know they've been good over the last couple of games, but let's say they do, I'll be happy that Nico Williams is back in the Champ, because he was incredible for Fulham last season. I was getting God knows how much utility out of him midweeks, and on weekends as well. He was getting crazy scores, and I imagine somebody like him, I don't really see him leaving Forest for a couple of years. Really, he's probably on a decent wedge. He probably don't really care whether he's playing Champ or Prem, really, as long as he's playing week in, week out. Brennan Johnson, he probably might get a move, to be fair, Brennan. But regardless, there is that formula that you just mentioned, Stish, is something that I just can't see how that doesn't work, basically.
Yeah. I think you just got to be patient. That's what I would say, like, to people that, you know, like maybe haven't got into the game because they've been put off by how expensive it looks to get involved in it. And it is expensive if you want to win this weekend. But if you want to win in 6 months' time, it's not. You know, like, buy players now that in 6 months will be some of the better cards on the platform because they've moved clubs or they've come into the team or they've been relegated. And there is that opportunity now. But that's the difference, isn't it? It's like some people look and they want to win now and they're like, well, I need Haaland, I need this, I need that. And it's like, if you want to do that, yeah, it's really expensive. But if you want to pick up some of these like youngsters who might get into the team next year, you could find yourself winning rewards week in, week out and on like a reasonable budget, I think.
I've punted on I've actually probably overpaid for him, to be fair, on auction, but I bought a super rare Andrew Moran. I don't know if you've heard of him, but basically he's like Evan Ferguson. You know, this Evan Ferguson has been playing for Brighton. He's basically his love child. They're both like the same age. They both play for Ireland under 19 together. He came on against Everton, to be fair. He made his Premier League debut on the 3rd of Jan. Been on the bench ever since. Mate, you watch this kid play. Oh my God, he is.
This is what this gets me excited. I like these are the cards that I like to pick up and just leave them. They make my gallery look like, you know, like the gallery values drop. But then as soon as one of these comes good, you 10x like in the space of a month or something. These are the trades that pay off for me, I think.
100%. Like, and I look at it, and I probably jumped the gun on the auction at the time. Like, how much I paid, this guy was just kept bidding me up, and it just wasn't stopping. Like, you compare it to the rare price was only going for like 30 quid, 36 quid 9 days ago, and I paid 400 for the super. So it's basically like a 10x, right? You know, for newcomers, they might look at that and go, well, it's 10x rarer, then, you know, fair enough, whatever. But bottom line is, I probably did overpay. But ultimately, I don't know if they're going to mint another one for a long time, really, unless he starts playing. So there might not be, unless he might get rewarded, but I doubt it with his sort of elf, like with a 21. Probably don't make sense right now for them, especially with the price point he's at, because I'm the only sale effectively. And yeah, honestly, I've watched this kid's highlights, and he's just absolutely ripping up the Premier League 2 up. He's 19 right now. And like, have you seen this? There's like a new there's going to be like a golden generation of Irish players. They've got like Bazunu, Kelleher at Liverpool as goalies. They've got a couple of good defenders, Evan Ferguson at Brighton. I just mentioned this kid. They've got like a good like core of like 11 players. A guy at Celtic. Who is the
Johnny Kenny.
Rito Vara. Have you heard of him? Rocco Vata, obviously his old man played for Celtic and that one there. He's like in this Irish setup and they're loving the look of him. They've got like a real good
Bosan Lawal is one of the big ones coming through at Celtic. He's a big defender.
There's one at Inter Milan. Basically, as soon as I bought this super rare, not to digress, but as soon as I bought this super rare, some guy messaged me on Discord. I'll give him a shout out, Unscathed Cat. And he messaged me saying, "Hey Harry, hope all is well. Just wanted to shoot you a message to say how jealous I am of that super rare Moran. I'm Irish and I'm a huge watcher of both our domestic league and underage national teams. So become aware of Andy when he was playing for our first team at 15 years old at Bray Wanderers in the League of Ireland. I'm sure you've done all the research, blah, 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 blah. But I think it's a super by top talent, maybe even more so than Ferguson. And we know how good Ferguson's been in the Prem. Obviously got injured. Simply too good for his underage football at this point and been cleaning up in the Premier League too. The lack of loan this January may point to some more first-team involvement for the end of the season, blah, blah, blah." And we just started chatting. He's a big under-19s and 21s Irish football fan. And just like you said, those sort of buys, they bulk out your gallery in terms of like, there's no utility for him right now, even though he's come off the bench once. That ain't going to do anything for me. I need players who are going to score 60s, obviously, right? For me to do anything right now. But imagine this kid gets a loan next season to, I don't know, Bristol City or something. Or if he comes to Cardiff, he can come to Cardiff with open arms. And well, mind you, we look like we're going to get relegated, to be fair, so I'll take that back. But just those buys do get me. Like, I prefer to spend 0.3 on that than I would like a 0.3 rare. I know, like an Ericsson right now. Not that I play over 23s, but I just would, because I'm just looking at that and I think, like you said, that chance of him going to play in a team week in, week out on loan in the Championship next season, like, and he's the type of player that gets goals, gets assists, takes set pieces. He's a number 10. He can run. He's athletic, and he looks great. Like, that just gets my juices flowing a little bit more than like buying a fucking Christian Eriksen for 0.3. And he's going to do well in the Prem this season, but who knows what's going to do after that? Like, do you get what I'm saying? That excites me a lot more. And I think you maybe are on this sort of the same wavelength in that sense.
Yeah, I've definitely got a few of them in my gallery, but I've had a few as well, and they come good. Like, I bought Kenneth Taylor at Ajax. I had sat on his rare for ages. Bought his super rare when a manager was selling up. So I picked his super up for an ETH, which at the time was a fair bit for a player who wasn't playing. But I'd seen enough of him to know that this kid is going to be ridiculous when he gets inside. Yeah. He's going to be proper box to box, and like a matrix melter, as we like to call him. But he's come pretty good this season. He seems to have cemented 100%. His place in the starting lineup now. And there you go. I've got like a nailed on U23 who is he's only 20 still. So I've got years of utility from him now until he makes one of them bad moves. Like, that's the problem with
Everton.
Yeah, goes here. If he goes, well, I'd take that now if they're going down. I'd love a Kenny Taylor. Decent.
that would be decent.
Yeah, I think if you look at, like if he does a Van der Beek and goes to a Man United where he doesn't really click, or like sits on the bench at Liverpool or something like that, there are moves like that for Ajax players, unfortunately. But some of the English ones are a little bit more interesting in that sense that a lot of the players in England get loaned out either to European divisions where they go straight into the side, or they get loaned down to the Championship. And, again, they get the game time. Otherwise, they get recalled on loan and you just have to wait a bit longer. So I think I said it before, like when the Prem was coming on, one of the things I was most interested in was the players in those youth setups, like getting those cards minted. I've been waiting for Kobbie Mainoo to be minted at Man United. Like, his card's nowhere to be seen. So I'm hoping that like they update, we get a Kobbie, but I'd definitely be trying to get his card if he comes on the platform. That's Paul Pogba Mark II. Hopefully does a little bit better than him at Man United, but he's the man for me. He's one.
I'm gutted I missed Brennan Johnson's super rare went for like 0.5 on auction. And obviously he scored again on the weekend. This was before he'd scored again. So it went for 730 quid 6 days ago, 0.35. And obviously, scored. I mean, last four scores 60, 77, 75, 69. Before that, 42 against Chelsea. But obviously, a bit of a recency bias there. But obviously, someone like me, the follows Wales. He's young enough to where he's under 23 for another 3 years. I was looking at, like, that's what annoys me. So I've paid 0.3 for this Moran kid. You add a 0.23 added onto that, and you get a Brennan Johnson super rare. So in that sense, I have definitely overpaid for this Moran kid. On paper, 100%. Yeah, he's 2 or 3 years younger, so you could look at it and go, yeah, well, I could get X amount of more years, eligibility, and there's no guarantee this Moran makes it. This Brennan Johnson scoring goals in the Prem at the end of the day and scored goals in the Champ last season, so, way more solidified. Yeah, of course I would have, if someone gave me the option now, 0.35 on Brennan, 0.3 on Moran. Obviously, I'm going to choose Brennan for multiple reasons, but there's just as an overall point, these super rare auctions on auction have just been so cheap, I think. Apart from the Moran that I bought.
I need to put more of an eye on them. I've been missing a lot of them. I kind of pop into the new auctions and I just go to like my favourites and see if any of them have like come up yet. But you need
to be watching them all now, man. Like, see that John McGinn, I overpaid for it to get it in, but the auction went at 0.2. You know what I mean?
Ridiculous. Yeah.
Even for his injured, even for his crap L5, like, you can. Like, I just blew my mind that that's where it landed, and so I think yeah, I'm not been looking at my favourites. I'm just looking at these auctions and thinking like, oh wow, I wonder if that's going to like. I think McBride got super rare Stuart Armstrong, and I know Stuart Armstrong doesn't really play for Southampton that much at the moment, but he got it for like 90 quid. Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
he does play. He does get decisives. Unique Ryan Christie, who is a starter for Bournemouth, went for 0.4.
Wow.
And I'm now looking at a unique Liam Cooper, and I know we're talking about cards that most people won't even look at, right? But he closes in 40 minutes. At the moment, it's at a quarter of an ETH. I'm going to say right now that's not going to break half an ETH. That unique.
Yeah.
And he's a starter. He doesn't really get in the Scotland squad normally, but he's normally a main guy for Leeds for the most part, as far as I know. Anyway, he's been in and out the team on L5, but so some of these cards, I don't think it's just that, you know, like we've always said to some extent or not, like, but everyone has their own saturation point for cards, and because we've got a full league, you know, how many people can take how many people can fight in the auctions for all of this stuff, you know? So having dry powder, whether it's prem cards or non-prem cards, you're gonna have to,
whether it's not, 100%. I just think I think there's just a bias for us though, like. I know these players so well in terms of Premier League players, even though they haven't been on Sorare for long or at all. It's just like we think they're better than what they are in the game. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's probably at our detriment in a weird way, us sort of, you know, British sort of football watchers in that sense. Like, I don't know. I just think, like, I look at like I don't know, just give me any name. Like, they just don't equate score-wise to what you'd love them to score. Do you get what I'm saying? And I don't know, is that an issue? I don't know. Is that an issue for onboarders, do you think, in a weird way? Not an issue, but do you think that confuses them, maybe?
Possibly. I think until you get used to the scoring, right? Until you've played a bit of SO5 and realise, like, you know, a player that does nothing but then gets an assist is not as all the time, constantly.
Yeah.
You know, little touches here and there. That's like Osmar's the classic one in my gallery for that. It's like, if you watch Saul, doesn't look like he's doing much at all, and he's not all over it, but he's on the ball so much that those little, you know, completed passes, they add up. You know, he might complete like 80 passes in a game, and like
100%.
It all adds up on the all around. A couple of long balls, loads of little passes, you know, win a couple of duels, you're laughing. Like that definitely, until you've played SO5, you don't really know that. So I think that maybe, I don't think it maybe halts up the onboarding, but maybe it slows down people's progression. But we'll see. It'd be really interesting to see like who people start buying and what that means when the Prem starts to wind down for the season. What is going to happen in Asia, America, and are people going to start being like, oh, you know, I can't, you know, they've got the bug, they're buzzing, they do their SO5 in the week and on the weekend, and suddenly they only play Prem. Going to be really interesting to see what that does for America and Asia in a few months' time when everything starts to wind down. But 100%. I've got high hopes for it.
I sent you a wee link in the wee chat we've got. I sent this card to Nellis this morning. I was like, mate, you have to buy this. And just when you're talking about Irish kids, I had to go and find the card and share it with you.
John Patrick. Wow.
Look at this guy. Who's this guy? Where's he came from?
John Patrick Finn. Is that Getafe?
Yeah. Getafe kid.
That's why I seen him like Getafe. I'm like, John Patrick is this guy. I'm like, he's Irish.
What a random. Yeah. It's really
the most Irish name ever as well. John Joe Patrick. John Joe Patrick Finn is the like full slug on the URL.
What is it?
Proper Irish. Yeah. So I think we're about wrapping it up now. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Harry, it's been a pleasure having you on, sir. Where can people find you online, on socials? I'm sure a lot of people are already familiar with you and ours, but just in case any of our listeners are not familiar with Harry Trades, where can they find you?
Well, first of all, just thank you for having me, guys. And yeah, just Harry Trades YT, or at Harry Trades YT on Twitter, and then just Harry Trades on YouTube, basically, is kind of my two mains. I do have a bit of a TikTok that I try and post on now and again. I've neglected it over the last couple of months. But yeah, no, I'm you know, sort of mainly active on Twitter and YouTube. But yeah, that's kind of me, guys. Yeah, I do really appreciate you having me on.
It's great having you, Harry. Thanks for joining us.
Been great having you on, man, and good luck in the game week. And everyone listening, good luck in the game week. Quinny, good luck.
Good luck,
Hopefully,
Stishy boy. Good luck, Harry.
Bit of end product.
Thank you, lads. Yeah, and you, and Stish, I'll be seeing you in less than 2 weeks, I think.
Paris. I'll see you in Paris, won't I?
Yeah.
Nice. Looking forward to it. All right, gang. We'll call it a day there. And to everyone locked in, good luck for the game week, and we'll be back again next week. Cheers all.